finally, what we all have been waiting for and calling for and questioning why it wasn't happening. Stephanie White has stepped up to the plate in defense of Caitlin Clark. I could not believe my ears, guys. I could not believe my ears when I heard this. Stephanie White actually being bold enough to stand on business and protect Caitlin Clark.
Nobody saw this coming. Stephanie White, the usually diplomatic head coach of the Indiana Fever, just dropped a statement that has the entire WNBA scrambling. She didn't yell, didn't throw shade, and didn't go on some emotional rant. Instead, she did something far more damaging. She calmly told the truth. And that truth? Caitlin Clark is being used as a pawn by everyone in this league. Players, executives, media outlets, even the fans. Everyone's playing chess with her career. And White just called out the whole game. Here's what she said, word for word. "I hate it all for Caitlin. She's a 23-year-old kid who loves to play this game, and she's a pawn in a lot of other people's games." That single line has sparked more real conversation than anything the commissioner has said all year. Because when you strip away the politics and the PR talk, White just exposed what we've all been watching happen in real time. Caitlin didn't ask to be the face of every controversy, every CBA debate, and every argument about the league's future. But somehow, her name lands in the middle of all of it. What makes this even more powerful is who's saying it. Stephanie White isn't some random commentator or bitter ex-player. She's a head coach with serious history in this league. She was there when the WNBA fought for basic healthcare coverage. She played when having a league at all felt like a miracle. So when she speaks up now, during the biggest growth period in WNBA history, people listen. And what she's saying should make everyone uncomfortable because it's the truth nobody wants to admit out loud. Let's talk about how Caitlin became the center of everything without even trying. The moment she stepped into the league, ratings exploded. Ticket sales went through the roof. Suddenly, arenas that used to be half empty were packed. Games that nobody watched before were pulling massive viewership numbers. All of that is because of one player. But here's where it gets messy. Instead of celebrating that and protecting their golden goose, the league turned Caitlin into a symbol for every debate happening behind closed doors. When players talk about wanting better salaries, Caitlin's name gets thrown around. When there's criticism about officiating, somehow it circles back to her. Media coverage feels unbalanced? Blame it on Caitlin. New CBA negotiations heating up? You better believe her name is front and center. The wild part is she's barely said anything controversial all season. She shows up, plays ball, and handles pressure that would break most people. Yet every faction in this league uses her as their talking point, their leverage, their excuse. The league itself uses Caitlin to attract sponsors and justify new TV deals. They plaster her face on every promotional material. She's the reason networks are suddenly interested in broadcasting more games. But when it comes time to actually protect her on the court or defend her from constant attacks, the league goes silent. It's the ultimate have your cake and eat it too situation. They want the money and attention she brings, but they don't want to deal with the responsibility that comes with having a transcendent star. Players use her differently. Some use her name to push for higher salaries, pointing out that she's bringing in revenue that they're not seeing in their paychecks. That's fair. But others use her as a scapegoat, suggesting that all the attention on one player hurts the collective growth of the league. That's where it gets toxic. Instead of recognizing that rising tides lift all boats, there's this weird resentment brewing. Caitlin becomes the easy target when really the frustration should be aimed at leadership. And that brings us to the elephant in the room, Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. White didn't say her name directly, but everyone knows exactly who she meant when she said leadership needs to reflect where we are as a league. That's coach speak for your boss is failing. Engelbert has been catching heat for months now, and honestly, she's earned every bit of it. From dismissive comments about player concerns, to that infamous line suggesting Caitlin should be grateful for the WNBA platform, she's managed to alienate both fans and players. Think about how wild that is. You're running a league that's finally getting mainstream attention after decades of struggle, and somehow you're making everyone angry. Players feel disrespected, coaches are speaking out, fans are frustrated by inconsistent officiating and terrible communication from the top. It's like watching someone fumble success in real time. White mentioned that your employees are your #1 asset, and she's absolutely right. The players are the league. Without them, there is no product. Yet they're constantly treated like they should just be grateful to have jobs. Remember when Nafisa Collier went off a few weeks ago? She straight up accused Engelbert of bad leadership and claimed the commissioner said Caitlin should feel lucky for the platform the WNBA gave her. That caused a massive firestorm. Instead of addressing it directly, Engelbert dropped some corporate statement that sounded like it was written by a legal team. No accountability, no real response, just damage control. Then Sophie Cunningham called her the most delusional leader our league has ever seen. seen. That's not just frustration. That's players openly rebelling against the person supposed to be steering the ship. Becky Hammon has thrown shade at officiating inconsistencies. Lexi Hull backed up Collier's complaints, and now Stephanie White, who's usually measured and professional, is publicly saying Caitlin is being used as a pawn. When this many respected voices in your league are saying the same thing, maybe the problem isn't the players. Maybe the problem is exactly what White suggested, leadership that's stuck in the past while the league tries to move forward. But let's get back to Caitlin herself, because this is really about her. She didn't create any of this drama. When reporters asked her about Collier's comments, all she said was that she respects Fee and thinks she made valid points. That's it. She didn't pick sides, didn't escalate anything, didn't add fuel to the fire. Yet her name stayed in headlines for weeks because people can't stop using her as a shield for their own agendas. White sees that and hates it. You can hear the protective tone when she talks about Caitlin as a 23-year-old kid who just loves playing basketball, because that's what gets lost in all this chaos. Caitlin is still young, still learning, still figuring out how to navigate being the most famous women's basketball player on the planet. She didn't ask for that title. The league handed it to her the second ratings started climbing, and now when things go wrong, she's also the scapegoat. The physical toll has been brutal too. All season long, Caitlin has taken harder hits than almost anyone else on the court. Flagrant fouls that should have been called weren't. Players have openly admitted to targeting her. The league's response? Basically nothing, until the backlash got so loud they had to issue vague player safety statements. That's exactly what White is talking about. They only react when it looks bad publicly, not because it's the right thing to do. Here's the thing that makes this whole situation so frustrating. The WNBA is at a legitimate crossroads. They've got momentum they've never had before. Packed arenas, huge TV ratings, stars who can actually move the needle. But they're also running out of patience, and the cracks are starting to show. White even acknowledged this when she talked about growing pains of becoming a mainstream professional sport. She's not wrong. Every major league has gone through internal chaos during periods of rapid growth. The NBA dealt with it. The NFL dealt with it. The difference is those leagues had leadership that actually learned from their mistakes and adapted. The question everyone's asking now is whether the WNBA will do the same. Because if they don't, these cracks turn into fractures. And when a league fractures, it doesn't matter how popular your stars are. Fans lose interest. Players leave. Sponsors back out. The whole thing collapses under its own weight. What's really at stake here isn't just Caitlin's reputation or even the commissioner's job. It's the entire credibility of the WNBA as a professional league. Right now, they look like amateurs playing dress-up in the big leagues. You've got top-tier athletes flying commercial, while male athletes in less popular sports fly private. Players fighting over salary scraps while executives take credit for growth they didn't create. Fines handed out for speaking truth while real problems go unaddressed. Stephanie White has seen both sides of this. She played when the league was barely surviving. Now she's coaching during its biggest moment. She's not anti-WNBA, she's anti-nonsense. And when she says Caitlin is being used, that's not an attack on anyone specifically. It's an observation about a broken system that's too scared to admit one player is carrying most of the weight. The irony is beautiful in the worst way. The WNBA spent years begging for attention, praying for someone to care, hoping for mainstream relevance. Now they finally have it because of Caitlin Clark, and they don't know what to do with it. So instead of protecting their biggest asset, they let everyone use her as a bargaining chip. Instead of building around her success, they resent it. Instead of leading, they're reacting. And while all this plays out, Caitlin just keeps hooping. She shows up, puts in the work, handles the pressure, and somehow manages to stay above the noise. But at some point, something has to give. You can only be everyone's pawn for so long before you decide the game isn't worth playing anymore. Stephanie White knows that. She's seen talented players walk away from situations that drained them. She's not going to let that happen to Caitlin without saying something. So here we are. The WNBA has everything it ever wanted: attention, money, stars, relevance. And they're on the verge of wasting all of it because the people in charge can't get out of their own way. White's statement wasn't just a defense of her player. It was a warning shot to everyone involved. Fix this now or watch it all fall apart, because if the league keeps treating its biggest star like a pawn instead of a person, it won't just be Caitlin who walks away, it'll be the fans too. And once you lose that trust, you don't get it back.